The world is yours. Oye, welcome to Oye Dimelo Cinema Club, and we're here tonight with our great group of people. Let's show the beautiful panel to the people. Yeah, we got El Dondino in the house. We got Antonio Montana's plural. Steve Dez in the house. We got Marina, and we also got Jason Eccles. He loves bridges right here in the house. And if you guys saw the last one, we're doing this again. We're doing a rewind. We watched Scarface 1932, which was the basically the inspiration for the 80s Scarface. I picked this movie before Dino kind of wanted to recommend it to us just to see the good nuggets that were from the second one to the from the original. I'm just blabbermouthing at this point. So let's go on to first impressions of this here movie. I'll save mine for last. I'm actually gonna open it up to where the fuck is Dino? I was gonna have him start it.
I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Yeah, I was gonna have you have the floor.
All right. Well, yeah, not my first time watching it. Maybe my third time. Definitely, it's one of those where I had seen the Al Pacino one, and then I think it was the 20th anniversary when they came out with the DVD and all the extras. That's how I stumbled on the original one. And if you watch the Al Pacino one at the end, it's not in memory of, but dedicated to, and it's actually the two screenwriters for this original movie. So yeah, after not seeing this in forever, it's funny, right? We're talking about how the other movie was almost 3 hours and it felt a little long. This one felt a little long to me, and it was like half the chunk. But yeah, it had a lot of the same beats, like a lot of the Tony and his sister, Tony and the girl. What do you call it? But interesting at the beginning. The one thing that I real quick, the one thing I'll say is a nice, interesting how at the beginning of the black and white one, it has that scroll. It has like basically the filmmakers are kind of like, "Hey government, what are you doing? Look at this, blah blah blah." And then the Al Pacino one also has a scroll talking about kind of the historical part of it, because even the black and white one was like basically what we have here is not this like ultra violence or whatever. This is actual things that have happened. And the most famous one is the Valentine's Day Massacre, which is what happened in Chicago, which is what Al Capone, Scarface, tried taking out his the Bugsy or whatever, but it was Boris Karloff who got away because it was a mistaken identity. So that's the biggest kind of known actual violent crime that happened in real life that then in the Scarface from the 30s that we watched is an actual scene in it. As well as like then in the 80s Scarface, a lot of the violent acts in the movies are actually from the newspapers and clippings of that time period in Florida. So yeah, I had seen this film again. It's definitely slow watch, but I think it's a great kind of like if you watch the Al Pacino one and you're kind of in that gangster mindset, it's a good kind of watch to kind of see where the one got inspired by the other and the
Awesome.
zeitgeist of that
Awesome.
period.
Great take. I'm gonna pass it on to I'll pass it on to the man that made us watch the first one. To Dez. Why don't you let us know how you feel? How did this movie make you feel?
Yo, yo, yo. First of all, I want to start my first impression by saying this movie was complete propaganda. Like from the get go, it was a propaganda. It was there in the graphic and the thing. The first fight scene was by far the most realistic fight scene I ever seen in my life. When that guy just slapped the dude, like punched him, or I don't know what it was, and he just fell. I was like, wow, this is WWE back in the day. This was the real stuff. And of course, I have to say, like, this movie, like Dino was saying, had some beats from the original Scarface, which to me will always be the Al Pacino one. But in contrast of that, like in the Al Pacino one, I felt that in this movie, I mean, we can get that more later into favorite characters and stuff like that. But like, I felt like in this movie, the sister was much stronger, like as an actress and stuff like that. The movie was slow, especially in the beginning. So I am a person that sometimes my ADD or whatever is not allowing me to watch things so slow. So I did fast forward the movie, not fast forward, but put in 1.25 speed.
Gigawatts.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and I traveled back in time to 1985 uh, to make sure my mom sleeps with my dad. So anyway, that's another.
God.
But, but essentially, this film was when this movie got kicking, like kicking with the violence and the gun and the shit. To be honest with you, I was like, "Yo," I felt like I was in it because I was just like, "Oh, this is just not stopping. This is just going. They're just doing random drive-bys for no reason." And yeah, but this movie definitely has a lot of things to be discussed about. But I could definitely see the parallels of like the Tony Montana, Al Pacino, Scarface, where they have like scenes that they're almost identical. There's not the same wording necessarily, but they're almost like beat by beat, close-ish to the thing. But I definitely, for me in particular, I enjoyed more the choices that Al Pacino made as the character than this one. The only part that I like about this particular Antonio or Tony will be the like in the very last scene when he's like essentially trapped and he's gonna get gunned down with his sister there and he's like laughing maniacally like aha like this happened and it reminded me of like the Joker almost like a little bit of like that I don't know yeah a mix of all the Jokers ish I guess stops at Heath Ledger, so from Heath Ledger down basically those Jokers. Anyway, that's my first impression.
Okay, very good. We made her wait long enough, Marina. Let's hear your take. You've been waiting all night for this moment. Let's hear it.
So I'm completely biased because although I understand that the cinema came from somewhere, that there's history, it wasn't just Marvel movies from the jump. Like cinema has a past. I can't stand movies from the 30s. I was dying. I tried to watch it on Friday and I was like, how am I going to cancel on these guys? Like, how am I going to be sick? Because I couldn't get through it at all. Like I had to take a step back and just make sure I wasn't busy. Like it's not one of those movies where you can like check some emails. Like you have to be able to focus. So I retried it again today and I just had to like tape my eyelids like this so I could finish it. It was very slow for me. I think the only thing, like, I'm glad we watched the other one first because if I didn't have those relatability moments that Steve was talking about, probably would have been like, what the fudge is going on here? I didn't even know who like Scarface was for a second. I was like, who am I rooting for? Like, people are dying. I just like, I don't know. I was like, is it the guy going into the janitor's closet? Is it the tree? Like, I didn't really know who he was for a sec. It took me a second to like kind of get a flow. And that's what I kind of struggle with older movies. Like, it was so much about like prestige and like elegance that sometimes I'm like, what is happening? Like, but I'm glad I had like those landmarks where it's like, oh, that's like the first movie. Oh, okay, cool. And it took me a second to realize like what we were like selling. I'm like, it's no longer like necessarily cocaine. It's more so like alcohol. Like it took me a second to kind of get into it. But Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was just bored, but it's hard to say. Like, I don't want to say this movie is boring. I'm just always bored in black and white films. It's just so hard for me to connect to them. But it was cool to see what the next movie was inspired by and like play a little game of like, can you spot the differences? I think that's like the kind of thing that intrigued me.
I totally get that.
No, real quick question, Marina. So was it the blacks or the whites that like? Because you said the black and white.
Stop.
Honestly, all of them.
Oh, and Marina, Tony, the Tony character, the Scarface character, it's the guy with a scar.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
It's hard to see it in black and white.
No, but like, so listen, hear me out. Like the first shootout was a shadow, and I didn't even know that's the guy we're rooting for. Like, I was like, I had to rewind. I'm like, who killed who?
I didn't know. I didn't know who we were shooting. I think it was just like, brah.
It was he was also the one whistling, if that helps. If
Did
you
he?
couldn't see the
Yeah.
scar.
Yeah,
It was a good foreshadowing.
it wasn't until the police like questioned him. I'm like, okay, and then he may have killed the guy in the first scene. It was a lot of like context clues. I didn't need that. Like, I graduated from school a long time ago. wasn't trying to put things together. So it was very frustrating. But yes, I did eventually see the scar, Dino. Thanks for always bringing me back.
I don't blame you for black and white films not being your thing, because I'll tell you right now, Schindler's List, Nordfest. All right, let's stop all this silliness. Let's go down. I want to hear Jason's dissection of this movie. I believe in Jason's dissection, him being perhaps the most unbiased person in this room for this review. Let's take it away.
Thank you, JP. So I thought this was my first time watching this movie, and then I was like, well, I feel like I would have seen this before. Why haven't I seen this? And then as I started to watch the movie, I realized, oh, no, I've definitely seen this before. For whatever reason, I always feel like I've never seen this movie, but I've seen it in so many clip shows, people talking about retrospectives and, all those type of like shows about movies and whatnot, breaking down movies. But so I forget that I've seen this. I may have seen it 2 times. I don't know, but I've seen this movie. I will say that upon this viewing of the movie, I was focused on all the same things that like Marina was. Just because, when you've seen a movie a few times, you start looking for little things. And I was definitely looking for like the similarities or differences between the two screenplays, between the two movies. This movie, the acting, it's kind of funny to watch because it's 1931 that this thing comes out. And it's like, you try to figure out what's good acting, what's indicative of its time, like where are they getting it from, and there's a little bit of like theater to what they're all doing, the way they're faced off to the camera, because the camera doesn't do a whole lot of movement. Paul Muni, wonderful performance, very memorable performance. I mean, you can see glimpses of what Al Pacino was doing, in this performance, especially even the way he speaks, like he's doing this kind of like bad sort of Italian thing. And Pacino, to get him back, said, I'm going to do a bad sort of a Cuban thing. That'll teach you people a lesson. I don't know. But Paul Muni is spectacular in this thing. He's such a good actor. His performance is so memorable. Like Steve says, there's like glimpses of the Joker in there, like modern Joker, of his like psychotic behavior and whatnot, which was pretty cool. He sort of looks like the Clay Man when he acts, because his face is so like, I don't know if it's washed out, but it just looks like clay. But, for whatever they were using to shoot him with, I mean, it seems like he's aware of that because he does a lot of face stuff in this thing. He's trying to tell a whole nother story with just his face acting. Probably comes from like a silent film background, because this is pretty close to that time. All these actors would have been coming straight out of the silent film era. So and also this movie, the gunshots, what makes you think so like the noise and stuff. There was one set of gunshots when he's coming out of his mom's house, where the gun shoots over his head, and I jumped back in my seat because it was so loud and caught me off guard. Like I jumped. I was like, I can't believe I just jumped at a 1932 movie, right? Yeah, that was my impression of this film. I I mean, and also George Raft is terrific in this thing. He's very memorable. And then Boris Karloff jumps out at you. He's in this thing acting, and the British accent is slipping out of there as he's talking. Um, yeah, I did enjoy this movie actually. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Also considering the time of this movie, you guys got to remember this thing is 93 years old. So it's almost a 100-year-old film. So I mean, there's some things happening in this that's probably pretty special at the time, and it's also a piece of propaganda. It sort of lifts itself up as a piece of propaganda right when the movie starts. It's like we're trying to illustrate a point here. So I mean, this is a movie to the government. They're like showing this to senators and town mayors and governors, like, hey, time to do something. They even give the solution. They're like, bring in martial law. Like there's very clear, like not only in the movie did they like find a way to get their point home, killing people, they probably could have killed more innocent people in it to really like punch the nail through the head. But I'm sure there's some kind of maybe censorship. But yeah, it was. I mean, and also this is the heart of like Prohibition era stuff, right? Like this is like the gangs are running Chicago, they're running the town, like. So this movie is like kind of making a lot of points, you know what I mean? And it found its way to still be entertaining, and I'm sure people loved it back then, all that gangster stuff, just like they do today.
Exactly. I just love that they had that little disclaimer letting us know, hey, be cool. Don't do drugs. Don't be a gangster, by showing us how badass it was to be a gangster. Anyway, so I'm going to give my first impressions rather quickly. Yeah, I absolutely dig this movie. And the fact that you got all the points you guys made, the fact that it was made in 32, right before all the censorship bullshit happened. This movie is surprisingly violent for how old it is. And the special effects in this film do hold up really well. And you actually, watching this film, if you're a big fan of the 80s movie, if you guys heard me from last time, I wasn't that big of a fan. But if you watch this movie, I think it'll give you a bit even more respect of the Pacino film, if anything. Just seeing how clever they use the material, this original material, to try to make something their own in the 80s picture. Because there's a lot of similarities, but I'll admit there was some story points that in my opinion, they definitely enhanced in the remake. So actually, let's we kind of talked about it in our first impressions. Let's talk about why not? Out the door. Let's go with a comparison of the 80s to this one. Which one do you think got right, and which one do you think not so much? Let's straight up go through with that. Compare this one to the 80s film.
I'll go first. So essentially, what I feel the newer film accomplished better than this older film is just explaining, like controlling more the narrative, in the sense of like giving you more of the details of who the people are, what are they fighting for, etc., etc., etc. This one was an utter mess, but at the same time, I feel like this one, it was done on purpose, because this was a time during Prohibition and stuff like that, and people got hold of machine guns for the first time, and they were going crazy in the streets, and they were organizing themselves in crime and all this stuff. That's the reason they decided to portray it in that way, because it was utter and complete chaos, and innocent lives were getting killed left and right. So yeah, in my opinion, the newer one has a better narrative to explain people what the heck is going on, and the one backwards different, but I think was done on purpose.
I'm gonna be lazy, and I'm gonna ditto that. I completely agree wholeheartedly when it comes to that one. And plus, where this older one, because of the whole thing trying to keep the balance of like, okay, well, we gotta make sure that we still have to be cool with the government. We have to be law-abiding, whatever's. The 80s film was much more clear in what they wanted and how to deliver that. It was easier to follow in that sort of way. I think the narrative in the OG one, it's a bit kind of better, but I think the 80s one, much more focused and much more clear what they wanted to deliver. And I'll pass it on to Dino. Dino, what you think?
I think then what we need to do is watch more movies from the 30s for Marina's sake and ourselves too, so that so we can, it's easy to be like, well, the 80s one, it was so much more kind of like in your face or was more rounded. But imagine like being in the 30s and watching this, right? Like the fact that that did have that kind of disclaimer at the beginning. Imagine you reading something and then being able to like, oh wow, I just I'm in, so the Valentine's Day massacre happened in Chicago. Someone could be in, I don't know, in New York or Florida or wherever there's a little, cinema, if you will, with talking pictures, and you can see that, and you can be like, it's just such a like it's when we watch things nowadays and we feel like it's so realistic. I can only imagine this in the 30s being kind of in that same vein of like this is real life, right? Even though it's so over the top and the slaps and stuffs are a little over the top, but it just kind of
Yeah, if you're
feels that.
watching this in a Tennessee theater in 1932, this stuff is blowing you away.
I think so. I mean, the one of the this picture is an indictment of gang rule in America and of the callous indifference of the government to this constantly increasing menace to to our safety and our liberty. Um,
And that's the
yeah,
opening cue card.
that's the opening cue card. I mean, it tells you right there and there, and because I don't know if you guys remember when I brought up that Scarface, the '80s one, was going to be NR. It was going to be not rated. It was going to be or NC-17, and it wasn't until they brought in the police and they brought in like people to say like, no, this is actually just taken right out of the newspapers. These are taken right out of crime scenes in Florida, so we're not over exaggerating the different scenes that we're seeing in the movie. And so this kind of did that same thing back then. Like it's pretty impressive that twice for the same, kind of movie or the American dream, if you will, of immigrants, right? Italian immigrant, Cuban immigrant, that it's following kind of the same storyline.
Interesting parallels.
It's always them immigrants coming over, just trying to get that American dream going. We also have a couple crossover actors in this black and white movie to another black and white movie that we saw. Some Like It Hot. Anyone? Spats Malone or Spats whatever. He was Manny in this one.
Oh, the
He
Manny
was
character.
yeah, he was the Manny character, and he was the gangster in Some Like It Hot, which also did a whole thing of the Valentine's Day massacre. It's the famous garage scene, and the only reason why they didn't actually get the mob guy was because it was so cold and it was winter, snowing in Chicago, and everyone had their overcoats up, and they
Yeah.
brought in assassins from outside of the country, so it couldn't be tracked back to Al Capone. And so the assassins from outside of the country only had like a little picture because it was, tiny little pictures back in the day. Anyway, if you like mob stuff, you're gonna love this movie and Scarface and any other one. Someone else can talk, guys. I'm just gonna be a dork about the mob.
Hey, we like your educational sidebars. All right, so let's eeny, meeny,
Dino, we
miny.
all, Dino, we all know that you were in the mob, so it's okay. Do you guys notice real quick? My bad for interrupting. Did you guys notice the little kid that's also in the Scarface movie from now? That he's in this movie and he's in both Scarface.
Really?
Yeah.
What kids?
Me neither, because that's a joke.
I thought it was gonna maybe be a newspaper kid that I was like, did I miss that?
he would be like 50 something when the next one came out.
Can you imagine he still plays a newspaper kid? He shows like, hey Tony, look at the massacre, and then it's like, hey Tony, look at the massacre.
I thought maybe it was Eddie. Eddie, you want a job?
Yeah.
Sure, Tony.
So
Hey, you got a job.
I have an interesting parallel from the 80s to this one that kind of goes in par with what you guys are talking about a little bit with the opening card for both movies, stating the intention of the movie. And I feel like the reason they do that because I don't think they care about the public adult at all. I don't think that's really what they're trying to do. I think the producers are trying to absolve themselves because what they're doing is, in both cases, they're making, which is rarely done at both times, 80s and 30s, where they make the hero of the movie the actual villain. So people who watch this are going to, heroize the villain of the movie. That wasn't done a lot in the 30s, and it really wasn't done a lot in the 80s either. It only started to be done more now, like in today's day and age with shows like Breaking Bad, and then everybody wanted to play like, well, what's the villain's perspective, right? But back then, this is kind of rare. And I think they're absolving themselves, saying, no, we're helping you understand the problem, government. This is for you. It's really educational, played in the schools. I don't think so at all. I think these are gangster movies. They're glorifying being gangsters. And they're saying, hey, we're helping. And it's
Okay,
like, it was,
okay. To that, Jason. Sorry, maybe.
no, no,
Well, what about the MPAA? Right, you got to sell your film. And if you think about it, Bonnie and Clyde got super famous because of newspapers, right? And other kind of like gangsters of the time period were like superheroes. Because again, if you think about it, during Prohibition, during the Depression, all that, which is kind of like also Boardwalk Empire, right? Like all these kind of like hero stories of people that, which you could even be like in Latin American countries and people with cartels, right? And that's where Narcos kind of came in, of showing these rags to riches, right? So I agree, but at the same time, I think just to be able to get the film, I like the exonerating themselves. But by exonerating themselves is just for them to allow themselves to be able to like release the film
I think so.
and not get in trouble with the law of the different conservative and
Yeah, they don't want to get their movie canceled.
yeah, because
Or
back
yeah, but
then
even like 2 years down the line, if gangster stuff upticks after these movies come out, they're like it was Scarface. They influenced everybody to do it.
yeah.
My list of comparisons. So
Nice.
I'm just kidding. There's nothing on
Le-
this.
Damn, I thought it was going to be like white, all white people in both Italian and Cuban.
So first things first. First things first, Karen Morley could never. Our blonde, our white gold babe in the 80s was amazing. I wasn't even like, I'm like, this is what we're rooting for. This is who we're trying to steal, who we could like borderline die for. Like she was not interesting. Like I don't know. Like, yeah, so that's number one. I liked the sister as well. Steve was trying to take my thing. I was gonna say the sister in this she was super powerful. I just thought it was just so funny when she was like trying to seduce the man while she was dancing. Did anybody else like get really like scared? I don't know. Like she was it was such a creepy dance. She started like tap dancing and she's like, do you want to dance with me? I'm like this.
Yeah,
I'm
It
like
did get some Reefer Madness vibes. I agree.
so I'm
yeah.
curious though.
No, but
is that
listen, you gotta know that like this is how they, she as an 18-year-old like risks, So now will be like a TikTok challenge,
I don't know. I feel like seduction is somewhere in between both of those.
I tell you what, I don't know. It's a weird kind of like that tap dancing is like the early 2000s just grinding on you. You know what I mean? Like
She was
I
dancing. She was showing him what she was working with. She goes, "You don't want a piece
yeah
of this action, Daddy? What? Look at this thing. And moving
yeah
it."
she was just like
She came down, did it, and reversed it for sure. But
Oh, yeah. Look,
I was just waiting. I was on the edge of I was on the edge of my seat waiting for some booty shaking. I was like, this is
well, that was the booty shaking back
You thought
then,
she was going
Marina.
like she was going to turn around and
like I
twerk
feel
it
like,
open for a player, huh?
or just like a little bit more like sensual. She was like, ba, 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 ah.
Okay, so here's the thing. I thought about that too while I was watching it, and I think here's the thing. Here's the key. When the music changed, it sounded like Duke Ellington. It sounded like a black jazz player, and now she's dancing to black jazz player music.
Oh,
So that kind of
scandally clad.
yeah,
which
that.
is the devil, you know.
Risque.
Go back and just listen to the song change when she starts dancing. I'm pretty sure that's like Duke Ellington or somebody.
I'll go on, Marina.
I also the cop I feel like the cops had more of an impact in this movie.
One journalists also.
And it was just like I kind of like gang on gang violence a little bit more. Like in the 80s where it's just like a takeover because the
Yeah.
police are the ones that end up taking him out, which it could have been the same. Could
Right.
have honestly been the same, especially because they had people like cops in on things. So
And they both kind of had to do with his buddy getting killed, but this one he's actually wanted for the murder of his friend, and that's what made the cops go chase him down. Even though in the Al Pacino one, that is kind of the final straw, is him taking out Manny, right? Like he was already going downhill, but that definitely took it over the top.
So the
Um,
gangsters come and kill him in the 80s, and then the police show up, right? It wasn't so much like the police are the ones that come and barricade in the 80s.
Police never showed up.
At the end, I feel like I heard them after.
Oh, you heard that? Wee, wee, wee.
Always say wee 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 wee, like a cop car. No,
Yeah. I will say the sister character, like I'm glad, someone was like her character was clearly, you can see the female characters were kind of a mishmash of both, right? But like Gina, Tony Montana's sister in in the '80s version with a sister in this one, like the actress who played Gina, I felt at times sounded very much like the actress who played the sister of Tony in the '30s version. I don't know if it's like, and even some of her mannerisms, but I don't know if that's just like skinny cocaine body image. Is that a thing? Like skinny cocaine, bone skinny cocaine ladies? Is that how they all move? Like, I don't know. I haven't been around skinny cocaine women of the night to be able to tell if that's a stereotype or not.
I haven't been skinny in a decade, and I haven't tried the cocoa, so I can't verify. Maybe
JP, you seem like you're a recovering skinny cocaine lady. What say ye?
No.
But did anyone else though notice that kind of the sister thing that I just kind of mentioned, that they felt very much like the one who played her in the sister in the '80s Al Pacino movie felt very, very close to the 1930s.
Yeah, they definitely
like
actresses that were like super tiny, like to kind of maybe emphasize that they're younger. Like, and then just like a young girl, like on the prowl and new to the world. Like it probably went a long way to just, because I feel like I didn't look up ages, but they were probably playing younger than they actually were. And sometimes being thinner and lanky kind of helps towards looking like you're younger too. So I could see it. And then like they both have like the curls of their time too. Another thing that was hard for me to wrap my head around was like the beauty standard of that time. I think because like beauty was such a big thing in the 80s version. Like it was just like these were like this was his sister was hot, this blonde girl that's with his boss is hot. I didn't really get that appeal because the style and the beauty standard was so different then. Like the freaking eyebrows were aligned. Like everybody looked like a clown to me with their makeup. And it's crazy because that was the hot stuff back then. But it was just like really hard. Like a huge appeal of the 80s one for me is how like dynamically beautiful people were and like fancy. And that the fact that they were in the first one, but it wasn't glamorous to me, kind of disconnected me towards like the high life that they were trying to show. It was just like, who are these people that you guys
It
picked
was
out?
like
It's
black
the
and white
it's
to
the
you.
flappers.
Yeah, it's a different time, and I kept trying, but man, I was just like, yo, like I don't know if like she's worth stealing from your boss and like killing him over it.
I
But
feel like that about fashion and makeup of many times, where
yeah,
like years later, the fashion and the makeup people do look like full on clown shows.
yeah, I think like
Now it is so much harder though for black and white. I made my little joke of it being so black and white, different wise. But yeah, just the idea of makeup for films is so you gotta think about that transition of just like it's like a completely different world of what would transition, because historically also there's a whole thing of like how did they do makeup for black people and stuff like that, and it literally was from blackface to then let's just put Vaseline. And so it's like early on color movies when they had black performers on it, they're super shiny because all they would do is like let's put Vaseline on your face and it's just gonna be shiny. So that is a whole different like other thing to like keep in mind of like okay, there's beauty in the times and then there's beauty on screen that especially I feel like for black and white just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't really make sense because there's absolutely it's such a different beast for us to be able to see that and be like, oh, what's the inner beauty of your just completely washed out body and face?
yeah, and I feel like
Right
it
on.
missed the mark just by a couple years because like even when I think of like a more like relatable beauty standard, even like Wizard of Oz, like you know what I mean? Like even like that onward, I think it changed a little bit. I do think like that silent movie crossover kind of trickled for a couple years of like kind of like a animated showy look more so, and then like it slowly but surely became more about like just looking so elegant and divine because it's not, yeah, like even like late 30s was a little bit better, but it definitely was like a roadblock for me, like because you appeal, like you want in the one from the 80s, you want the money, the cars, the girls in that movie. When you're watching it, like you get into that zone. And this, I just wanted to get out of there. But like it was just like it was hard for me to like relate
You,
to like what we're rooting for.
you were born in the time you're supposed to be in. Like the 30s would have bored you. You know what I mean?
Well, in more than one way, I probably would have been cleaning somebody's bathrooms back
Yeah.
then, but but
Right.
yeah.
Was this film even SAG?
No,
Probably not.
no, this film would not have been SAG. But something about the film is that the budget to produce it was $800,000, which is a lot of money at the time. It's one of Howard Hawks' most expensive films.
Hughes.
Uh,
Oh no, sorry, not Howard Hawks. Yeah.
yeah, Howard Hawks. So it was one of his most expensive films at the time. It only grossed $600,000 because shortly after coming out, a lot of states banned it because they said it glorified violence and they didn't
Yeah.
want to show it. So, I mean, but the movie did really well out the gate. And then after that, it was just shut down. So it never made its money back in cinemas. I mean, today it probably has, I would imagine.
Maybe, just maybe.
Just
Speculation.
in re-releases, a lot of movies like this played a lot in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, just midnight movies, old second run theaters. Al Pacino says he saw it in a second run theater in Hollywood in the 80s. So, I mean, this is a movie
Yeah,
that I think people have seen. It just didn't
again,
make its money back for a while.
I really recommend, if you get a hold of the DVD, or I'm sure now there's a Blu-ray edition, because it's been now 40 years since the 80s movie came out. So I
So
would
here's
say
something
that.
interesting about that. There is the DVD of Scarface, the 25th anniversary, I believe, they do package this movie as an extra disc or an extra feature. And up
Yeah.
until before that movie came out, the studio was forced to lock it in an actual vault. They had to go around the country, collect all the film reels, throw it into a vault, and so they just sort of lived there. And then when they pulled all that stuff out to put it on the movie in the 80s, turns out there was an alternate ending that Howard Hawks had filmed just to try to get it back into theaters, but just it never happened. So it brought all the actors back in or whoever to get an alternate ending, and then that was also put as a special feature.
It's also, I don't know if you guys saw that, it says it's based on a book.
Oh,
At
I didn't know.
at the beginning of the film, it says it's based on a novel by Armitage Trail that came out in 1929. Yeah. The other thing, if I'm not mistaken, one reason why that black and white film was so expensive, it was also Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes crazy because he's one of the producers, and just they were transitioning between silent films and talkies. And that, if I'm not mistaken, this was one of the films where they had originally started as a silent film, but it was so over budget and everything that once talkies started coming out and were more available, Howard Hughes was kind of like, let's kind of do it to come out as a talkie and not silent. If I'm not mistaken. I'm
Could you
sorry I
imagine
didn't
scene with no words?
say that. I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
No.
I
You
was
said, can you
talking over
imagine her
you.
dancing with no words?
The dance scene where she's seducing him, like in a silent film form, where it's like da da da, and then it pans. Please, please love me. Da, 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 da.
Right, exactly.
I'll just kiss you. Da, 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 da.
Hopefully, we would still get the music like on beat with the dancing. Like that
I
would be my
mean,
hope.
usually when I see women dancing, I just see them dancing. I
Because
don't have to
remember,
hear
in the old days, a lot of the theaters didn't have sound systems, so there would be a piano or organ player playing the note music that would come with the movie.
Yeah.
So hopefully, your theater had a good piano player. Otherwise, your movie was bonkers.
What happened to those jobs, man? Those people need to form a union.
Yeah, right.
One thing I did want to mention, and I don't want it to be overlooked, was because that was shocking to me. That's when I was like having heavy criticism with the movie. But then again, it could be a choice. Is when there were so many like literally shootings, like indoors and things like that, and people were acting normal, or they were like, "Oh, that happened. Let's continue to party." I was like, "What? If that happens now, it's party's over."
No, that's real. I've been at that party before.
It depends on what hood you're in, because like sometimes you're like, yeah, it is what it is, you know.
I've been at parties before where like,
man on the phone.
yeah,
I was in a
I've
country
been at that
party
party.
like that in Vegas, and believe me, that party was over.
It depends on who you're dealing with. If you get it under control real fast, you can just get back to partying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do wonder if it was on purpose or there's, because I mean, like,
I think
yeah,
that's like Boardwalk Empire. They did the same kind of stuff.
yeah,
A little violence amongst violent people. If you hang around a bunch of gangsters, you know some gangster stuff might go down. That's the risk you're taking to, be doing gangster stuff. Let the money roll,
it's the thug life,
That's right. It's thug life. Okay, so speaking of thug life, I do love how what was her name? The girl that he was chasing after in the movie, the other
Poppy.
girl.
In this movie, it was Poppy.
I do love how Poppy was just like G'd up. She was tossing them guns, like, go do this. She was loading the gun up, like she was about that life. Poppy had been there before, she's seen it before, and this is just how she was gonna roll, period.
Not period. Imagine Poppy be like, period.
Period. Like Poppy only messes with gangsters.
Oh, her going in for the cigarette getting lit by the, like
Yeah, that was a good.
her man has a lighter and Scarface has a match and she goes for the fucking match. That's a huge fucking, right there and then,
Time to die.
That's a good scene too, though. Like it looked good to photograph.
Well, even then, also Scarface like lighting a cigarette from the cop's badge at one, early on
Yes.
at the beginning of the movie, like yeah.
Police.
It's a good person.
I was like, yeah, when that first started, I was like, if that police takes that, these are some wimpy police, because today a police will cap you for doing some mess like that. And I was like, this crazy. So I was really happy to see the police punch him, because otherwise, it's like, there's nothing real about this.
Yeah, can you imagine a body cam in the 30s? Like they have to do this the whole
Right.
time. Like, okay,
Exactly.
what's up?
Yep.
That was me moving a reel, by the way. There was nothing else to that motion.
I know it was a real body cam. You had a body cam that you had to, yeah, I get it. It's funny.
So the film was filmed before the introduction of the production code in 1934,
Yeah, it was
and
right
then that's
before
that's
that
part.
happened.
Yeah, so then that's part of the reason why they added even the script at the beginning and stuff like that to try and be like, this is the bad
We
gangsters,
do,
bad.
we do, baby, we do.
Yeah,
We trying to help y'all out, baby.
yeah.
This got nothing to do with me. It's about you.
And it had an alternate title, so "The Shame of a Nation."
Mm.
That was during that period trying to
Thank
make it.
God.
Scarface is a better name.
Huh?
So it was changed to Scarface later. This was released under Shame
No,
of a
no, no,
Nation?
no, 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 no. It was Scarface, and then they even tried, like you said, there's that different ending, or a different ending was added to make it to where it makes Scarface the character like he's kind of a wimp at the end of this film, right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, please, I'm unarmed. Don't shoot me. I don't have a gun. And then he tries to run away and gets gunned down. Like
Yeah.
that's clearly different to Al Pacino, just like cocaine, fueled. Nothing will kill me except for a shotgun through my guts. Like he didn't die; his organs just stopped. Al Pacino's Scarface is still alive.
Yes.
Another honorable mention is the mother in this movie. I think she was like giving way more immigrant this time around.
Uh-huh.
Like, it was just so funny. Like her lines were the same each and every time. She told me to mind my own business, just like you. I was just like every time it's just like you're the problem. You're the problem. I liked her. I liked her. If there was anything I liked more in this movie than the newer version, is
I liked how her and Tony both had accents, but the daughter didn't. I guess the daughter was too young. She was like spent more time over here, or she was born here.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
lady looked like a clown from another family. She did not look the same. Like her makeup was just like it was so different. Like I think like that was what it was really throwing me off because like I said, it was a trickle out of this era. So some people had like that very like clown-like makeup from silent films, and then some people didn't. And so every time I saw it, I was like super shocked. And especially in their dynamic as a family, she looked like the silent film makeup, and they looked more like
I
what
felt like Paul Muni had on a ton. I felt like he had it caked on.
it was, but it was still different. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah.
It could have been like the TVs that we're watching it on because it's film in black and white and weird. It could have been like all that stuff. It just felt like there was parts where his face was a little washed out because he had on so much makeup.
Yeah.
Where'd Dino go? Where'd my boy go?
Hey, I think he went to
Oh, we're close. We're close to the end. And we have to
No,
close
no,
it with the.
he's still here.
Well, we can keep going.
Oh fuck!
We can keep going.
Wait, what? I'm getting another drink. No, I'm just saying that during that time you would film it a couple times and be like, we got it, let's put it in the can, right? And then you get to the clippings of that day and it's like, oh, this is kind of blurry, or oh, we didn't have that great of a light. Well, that's what we got. So that soft blur, like just like could be for a quinceañera portrait picture that is like, oh, look at that glow with a little blurry vignette going on. Might have been an accident, but because it's the 30s and you got to get a film out in whatever amount of days, it's the
And
go
listen,
time.
these lighting people, this is all new stuff. And the way film works, film can be very, especially back then, film could be very different from roll to roll, just as far as like the integrity of it, just the consistency of the product. It was a different day, and then developing was always different, right? So if you don't have experts doing all this stuff, there's just a lot of room for error when messing with film. It's a whole nother science.
And two,
like-
shoot, I had a point. What did I oh dang, what was it? Dina was talking, Jason was talking.
Coloring.
You were talking
visuals.
about scenes being like, one take, not having as many takes. Darn, it'll come back to me. No, it has to come back now. No,
Oh.
keep going. Dang it.
How about them action scenes? The car stuff? Ooh, I love that. Same with Some Like It Hot. Like they're just shooting out of these like Model Ts or Model A, not Model T, sorry. I don't know what a Model T looks like. Model A's and above. And then they're just like,
That's
you're on
something
mute.
That's something that I wonder. Were these the original car commercials? Just good to go do drive-bys?
Yeah. But I love Fast and the Furious ain't got shit on these car scenes, It's just like we're just driving off of a freaking cliff. We'll just drive it off and we'll there and we'll land and then we'll just keep going.
It's insane. The production value of this film was great, and it holds up really well. Because there was rarely a moment while watching this particular picture where I did not believe it. Because there's even a scene where, again, car drives up and they throw a guy. The way that they threw a guy, it has to be a dummy. That was not a stunt actor that they threw out. But it looked like a really good dummy. Like half the time you see these mannequins flailing, but like no, that does look like a stone dead motherfucker hitting the curb hard.
I thought the same thing.
I just saw that apparently, and I don't know, I don't think it's this version, but apparently until 2019, there hadn't been a completely unaltered version of this Scarface from what Hughes and Hawks had to change due to the code. So I guess just back in 2019 did they finally either get it from Hughes' vault or wherever that they found on unaltered version. So
the director's cut.
I doubt that's the one we watched. Marina, you're on mute. What's up, girl?
I remember what I was going to say. Something we didn't mention. Something we didn't mention that we were more critical about then, but probably with the newer movie, but probably because it is what it is in the 30s. But ethnicities, like they were portraying Cubans in the 80s film, and we know a lot of them weren't. This film was supposed to be Italian.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys know if any of the actors were Italian?
Sure didn't.
Funny enough, they were actually Cuban.
Yeah, I'm curious. I wish I would have looked that up to see.
No, they all have like British sounding names. Yeah. Like just looking at it, these are all British actors.
Yeah,
although they don't pretend to be it. Well, other than being mobbed up, unlike where the Tony Montana, where he's like even speaks some really bad Spanish, right? And the people around them drop Spanish. In this one, at no point did I hear anyone try to speak Italian, right?
No, I don't think there was.
They weren't going to take time to learn Italian back then.
But even
where did you find such a person?
But the mom was Italian, which is great because I feel like she had the heavier accent. like if that's cool to know. Like the mom is from Italy. That's pretty cool. At least they have like a strand of integrity
Yeah.
there.
I mean,
I mean-
Lovo, the Frank character's name, the actor is Osgood Perkins. When have you ever met someone named Osgood? Not. I've only heard it in a TV show once, and it was a
Wasn't that
female
the
character.
penguin's name?
Huh?
No, that's Oswald Cobblepot. I don't know how to do it.
Fucking Batman.
Wow, it's crazy that these people were born in the 1800s. Like, whoa, man, life.
Yeah.
man.
Well,
They're
Paul
dead.
Mooney. Paul Mooney was born in Lemberg, Austro-Hungarian Empire. I mean,
Okay,
these actors were born in countries that don't exist by the time this movie comes out.
so I'm gonna freak you guys out a little bit here. If you look on Google, I don't know if this is accurate or not. It says Paul Mooney is a cast member in this thing.
Hmm.
I don't know if
What do you mean
he's
cast
like
member?
he's in the cast. He plays a part in the movie. He's maybe
Yeah,
an extra or something, but he's at the end.
Yeah, he was
Doesn't
the
say
fir-
what he
he was
did.
the, he was the first one that got shot.
He would have been a very little boy.
No, not that Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney, the guy playing Tony.
Oh,
I'm telling you. Also, Paul Mooney is an accredited cast member on Google.
Get out of here.
Maybe it's an accident, but it's there.
I think it's an accident. Get out of here,
he was on,
man.
he was on Central Casting.
No, I guess you're right. It wouldn't make any sense because Paul Mooney was born in 1941, but it says he's in the cast. Google needs to fix that. Maybe people typed in Paul Mooney too many times, and they actually typed in Paul Mooney.
I'm over here
Paul
like,
Mooney.
who was it?
Paul Mooney is a time traveler. Where is that? His Negrodamus? Is that what it was? What was the other one?
Damas and the time traveling players on Dave Chappelle. The time travel tent.
Shit. Oh my god. Paul Mooney's in the
Is he
original
the only
Scarface.
person of color?
In this universe, he is. In this dimension, he
Oh
is.
my
According
god.
to Google. Do you
All
see
right, we
that?
need to get that sidebarred for sure.
I mean, I'll say Poppy made it. She died at 93 in 2003, so she would have seen the Al Pacino Scarface. That would be nice to see what some of the people that were in that original might have thought of the.
I
Yeah,
thought
the
that
new version.
Michelle Pfeiffer was a load of trash.
She probably said something like, "When did we start allowing Italians to be in movies?"
Yeah, she was born in Ottumwa, Iowa. Whew.
Man,
So JP, take it away.
All right. Yeah, you know what? This round table discussion pretty much covered a lot of stuff. So I'm not sure there's anything else that we could cover. So unless you guys have any final says or anything you guys want to bring up, I think now's a good time to do our final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Yeah, I'll. You know what? Since I was last time, I'll go first. Actually, I'll go first for the final thoughts. Final thoughts. Really good movie. Really fun. If you like, because also we didn't discuss it in this thing, but if we did, it'd be too long of a fucking review. Well, there's a lot of things in this picture that you see in a lot of other gangster films as well. A lot of motifs. It's so great that something this crazy was one of the first movies to kind of show the gangster movies. I think there's like two other gangster movies in the talkie era when this came out that kind of like set the tone right before all the censorship shit happened. So thank God that this movie came out before that, because I'm sure in an alternate universe where they said, hey, wait a second, we can't do all this cool shit, put those guns away, it'd be a lot different movie, much tamer, and probably fucking boring. So I will give this movie a fucking B, and this movie, in fact, even raised my opinion of our previous picture. So I would definitely recommend it to any Scarface fans of the '80s version. Watch this one as well. It will give you a greater appreciation. And for those who haven't seen either one, I think you should actually watch both. So yeah, those are my final thoughts. Des!
Oh,
Awesome.
thank you for randomly picking me, JP. My final thoughts. I actually prepared a statement for you guys. So, Scarface, that was released in 1932, stands as a cinematic testament to the timeless allure of crime dramas and the gritty exploration of power dynamics in society. With its bold narrative and groundbreaking performances, the film delves deep into the dark underbelly of organized crime, offering a stark portrayal of ambition, corruption, and the inevitable consequences of unchecked power. At its core, Scarface is not just a tale of criminal exploits, it serves as a poignant commentary on the human condition and the allure of power. Through the character of Tony Camonte, brilliantly portrayed by Paul Mooney. Not that Paul Mooney you guys are talking about, not Negro Damas. Audiences are confronted with the complexities of ambition and the moral compromises that often accompany the pursuit of success. Director Howard Hawks masterfully crafts a narrative that is both captivating, thought provoking, immersing viewers in a world where ambition knows no bounds and the line between the right and wrong become increasingly blurred. The film exploration of themes such as loyalty, betrayal, and the allure of the American dream resonate with audience even decades after its initial release. Furthermore, Scarface remains relevant in contemporary times as it continues to inspire filmmakers and storytellers, serving as a blueprint for crime dramas that explore the darker aspects of human nature. Its influence on the cinematic landscape is undeniable, making it a timeless classic that continues to captivate and provoke introspection. In essence, Scarface from 1932 is more than just a crime drama. It is a cinematic masterpiece that delves into the complexities of ambition, power, morality, leaving an indelible mark on the history of cinema and inviting audiences to ponder the timeless questions it raises about human nature. That's my final thought.
Hey, Silver.
Right on. Well, I'll jump into my final thought then. I uh, I like this movie. I like this enough to recommend it. I would recommend this to people who love the gangster genre for sure. People who want to see important 1930 cinema, very early 30s cinema. Honestly, I don't think I've seen a lot of movies from the 30s. I'm gonna have to like take a look at my list and see why that is. I mean, I feel like there's very few movies that I would have seen at least before the late 30s, honestly. But I would recommend this to people who maybe aren't afraid of a black and white film. I think there's some interesting stuff happening in this, and it's interesting enough to talk about. You could watch Boardwalk Empire and maybe have a more fun experience, sure. But I think this movie has a place for conversation and dialogue and education and just knowing where movies came from. And again, it's 93 years old and still very entertaining. And I think someone said earlier, once the movie gets going, like the war actually starts, the gang war happens, it
That
doesn't
was
really
me.
let up. Like he's doing all this in a very he's becoming like the front runner in the Chicago mob scene very quickly. It feels like only a few weeks tops. He just knocks all the bosses off and goes, it just upsets the balance of everything. He lived really fast and really hard. Um, would I watch this again? I think oddly enough, I feel like there might be space for this again one day. I'll probably forget that I watched it again, and I'll be right back in here watching it. So, yeah, that's my final thought.
Okay, I need to know whether or not that final thought had 10,000 characters in it, because if not, I think Des is the only one that passed.
So far.
Adios. Give it down to it was eloquently said by everyone thus far.
I
Why
too,
the fuck?
I,
I too would like to make a statement.
I too wrote something from the heart. I just A feminist analysis of the 1930s version of Scarface could focus on several aspects. Okay. One prominent angle might explore the portrayal of women in the film. Given the era it was made in, female characters were often, this is from the heart, relegated to stereotypical roles such as the supportive wife or the damsel in distress. Analyzing how women are depicted in Scarface could reveal underlying themes of gender dynamics and power structures. Long story short, I'm never going to watch this movie again because I was raised off of Tom and Jerry and my attention span is like, bloop, bloop. So, so yeah, all that being said, it was cool. It's always cool to learn the history of something. But let's be real, I always got an F in history. So those are my final thoughts.
Damn. I don't know how I feel about you saying you're Tom and Jerry, and that's why you can. I love Tom and Jerry. I mean that's what I grew up with, and I'm okay watching black
Tom
and
and
white
Jerry's amazing.
films. So do not besmirk.
Let me have my
Uh,
punchlines. All right, just move on. Thank you. All right.
I'm sorry. I guess I'll go real quick. Yeah, I now that I kind of found out that there's a version, an unaltered version of this film, of the black and white one, I definitely want to go hunting for it because definitely, I don't. I think the version we watched is the same that I have in my DVD from the early 2000s. But I do. You. Oh, speaking of how much time passed, Jason, I was gonna say we had the best montage ever in the '80s film, but in this one, usually you would see that the clock kind of like go crazy. But I don't know if you guys remembered. I actually wrote it down. There's a shot of like the calendar days just being like falling off the pages, and it's a
Yeah.
Tommy gun.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is dope. That is real crazy. Because again, it's like how, back then, that might have been one of the first times doing that kind of edit, right? Of just like, let's show time go by. How are we going to show people going to get murked? How are we getting murked? Tommy Gunn! Tommy Gunn! Tommy Gunn! All right. All of a sudden, we have an editor here. What's going on? It's like 1934 for us because we haven't had this much editing in one of our videos since 1934.
Also,
All right.
gotta admire the sound mixing done for that scene alone, because it did feel like each shot was synchronized with the paper. It was good.
Also, was that the first time you've heard yips? That like she was like the outfit gives me the yips, or your outfit gives you the yips. I feel like that was there. So many lines that were used in both films. I think we already talked about that. I don't hear so good sometimes. So Haley, my aunt's dog. I was just talking about the shooting and all that, and the dog came over. She was really concerned uh, when the Manolo character, when he killed his best bud in front of his sister, because then the sister started screaming and crying and yelling and shrieking, and my aunt's dog came just like Haley just came up and was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So that was really believable for a dog. That shrieking, like that got the dog like really focused. Haley, don't right? She's like, please stop, guys. It's too real. Anyway, so would I watch this film again? Yes. I will try to find actually the hopefully as unedited version as possible, as in what the original Howard Hawks and Howard Hughes film might have been. Do I recommend this? I think I would recommend the Al Pacino film first, just because it's closer to what we are used to, as in modern storytelling. But I would definitely be like, hey, you should then go watch this black and white version, unless as you're one of those like video game club completionist. Is that what they call? Where you like to do everything perfectly all at once, all the missions, everything. Then I would say watch the black and white version first because it came first, and then you can watch the 80s. That's it. That's what I got.
For sure. Awesome. So that's everyone. That was all the people. in
Wait,
this
my
room.
imaginary friend also has something to say.
They're not here right now.
Who's your imaginary friend?
They you don't see it. They said it was good.
I see ghosts. Ghosts have thoughts. Wait. Someone has one final
Jason?
question.
That's right. As usual, I do like to end with a question. Also, I want to just say that I would also recommend this to people who like the original Scarface, because watch it. Or not the original Scarface, but the 80s Scarface. And then it's just, Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I don't know why you asked me, because clearly the Afro crew here already picked Scarface. So now it is the only Paraguayan in Oye's Cinema Club history, Dino.
So
There's a
since we
Paraguayan
watched,
version of Scarface.
so since we, and I do have scars, but they're here. Since we already watched the 80s Scarface and now the 30s Scarface, I think we should rewatch the 80s Scarface to see how well this Scarface now fit in it. So we're going to watch Al Pacino Scarface again just for Marina. No, I lie. There's this movie that I've had on the back burner of Oye Dímelo since we started, basically, that I've been wanting to watch for so long. But every time I'm like, if I can't think of a movie, I'm going to bring this movie up. But they've been now Oscar winners. So we're going to watch Swiss Army Man.
All right.
Ah! All
There we
right.
go.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've wanted to watch it for so long. And I've had it as a Oye Dímelo back pocket option. And I'm using it today.
Okay. Looking forward to it. Steve, you're all muted up.
Yeah.
Swiss Army Man for next week. So for Jason Echoes, El Don Dino, Marina, JP Serrano, and me, Antonio Montañez, aka Steve. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Wow.